Hello, everybody. Hello, organizers of PsyTech. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate. It's an honor to be here, a pleasure. Thank you, Deborah. I have this dream that one day I want to visit Israel. And so I'm just putting out there in the universe, maybe in a post-pandemic world that will be happening. That's one of the reasons I accepted to participate in this forum, because I really would like to expand my networks to that part of the world. We are the Chakra Institute for Psychedelic Plant Medicines. We're based in California, Bay Area. We're standing on Ohlone territory. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Chakra is, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some challenges of the globalization of ayahuasca, and I will conclude with just giving a little pitch about what we're doing and how you can support us in case you like our cause, in case ayahuasca has touched your heart, or you're a lover of plant medicines, shamanism, ritual religion, and you've somehow identified with your message. So the Chakra Institute aims to provide public education around psychedelic plant medicines. That's our main goal. And so we try to make academic knowledge more accessible to a general audience, and try to make concepts that are dense and hermetic more digestible. But we're not just like vulgarizing or mainstreaming psychedelics. We're trying to create a very high standard and keep academic rigor and quality. The second objective of the Chakra Institute for Psychedelic Plant Medicines is to create a bridge, a communication, an exchange between the world of plant medicine, shamanism, ritual, religion, ceremony, indigenous people, with the emergent field of psychedelic science and psychedelic assisted therapy. So we are our team of PhDs coming mainly from social sciences. A great number of us are anthropologists, but we also have sociologists and historians and others in our team. And we're trying to write about this phenomenon of traditional use of substances for this audience of biomedical doctors, therapists, and scientists involved in psychedelic, in the field of psychedelic science. And so we have been trying to do this bridge between North and South, between the English world speaking and the non-English world speaking, between anthropology and biomedicine. And our third objective, and all of them are related, is to create access, inclusion, and diversity in the field of psychedelic science. So we like to platform and to give visibility and to empower the voices of women, of queer people, of indigenous people, of people from the global south, of non-English speaking folks. A lot of our conferences have figured our stars are black and brown folks, and are folks that come from indigenous people, or speakers from Brazil, from Mexico, from Peru. And we try to diversify this field, and we have been creating a series of materials and educational resources on how to create inclusion and diversity. I also recommend reading our special edition on creating diversity, equity, and access in the field of psychedelic science. I co-edited with Dr. Monica Williams, who's a super intelligent, amazing researcher, and she's an expert on racism, and we published this in the Journal of Psychedelic Studies. So all of this, you can find out more in our website and learn about our different programs. We have a program, we have a racial equity and access committee, and we have also a gender committee, and we have also a line of work towards women. I also recommend you check our page for our our committee, the Council for the Protection of Sacred Plants. We're talking about legal aspects and conservation of plants. And we have a bulk of our work is related to ayahuasca, which I will talk a little bit here now. And it's a bit hard for me to talk about it because it's really at the core of my trajectory. On November 1st, in a few days, I will be making my 24th anniversary of my first glass of ayahuasca, which I happily took in Brazil, my home country, when I was 26 years old. And drinking ayahuasca has really changed my life and influenced um, my spiritual and professional path. And it has been an incredible journey. And as some of you might know, Chakra is a catch-all word for the leaf that makes ayahuasca. So we have named our institute. The Chakra Institute is a tribute to ayahuasca. We consider ayahuasca our teacher, our friend, our ally, and we try to keep this spiritual connection alive. Drink ayahuasca. Ayahuasca inspires our work, and also we try to be truthful to the traditional people that stewards this medicine for hundreds of years. And so the Chakra Institute have been doing some work to mitigate the impacts of the globalization of ayahuasca and try to create some harm reduction. So the genie is out of the bottle. As we speak in this moment, there's probably dozens and dozens of gallons of ayahuasca being brewed all over the Amazon for exportation. It's a fact. There's each new week, there's a new celebrity, a new mainstream video, a new TV show, a new startup, a new documentary, a new blog post, a new PhD student. Ayahuasca has really spread all over the planet. And so what are some of the main challenges that this expansion involves, and what can we do to try to do better? Because just to sit back and criticize or lament or feel resentful is not going to help. And so we're trying to do a public policy and health policy influence on the way that this expansion happens. What are some of the main challenges involving the globalization of ayahuasca? Of course, one of the biggest ones is the topic of sustainability. As some regions of Peru, it gets harder and harder to find the vine. Although some groups plant, still apparently the levels to which we plant are not as fast as the levels we are consuming. Not to talk about the fact that we're tearing down the Amazon by the minute, which also extirpates ayahuasca. We also have a lot of problems related to legal issues, as ayahuasca has DMT, which is a prescribed substance. And although the INCB has stated explicitly that it doesn't consider ayahuasca to be a preparation of DMT, and therefore it shouldn't be controlled, several national states diverge with this international interpretation and have persecuted ayahuasca using groups. So that's another big source of conflicts. The other problem is, of course, health concerns and interaction with other substances. There's a whole discussion about this. I don't have time in my 20-minute presentation to talk all about it. I wanted to offer this big menu and some way outs. The other topic that has been creating a lot of tension and a lot of stress has to do with practitioners' ethics and training. How do people get trained, and how do they start to offer ayahuasca to others, and what are the standards for this? It's also a controversial area. The very quality of the brew is also another problem, since we have been noticing the appearance of mixed ayahuascas, including a recent research that found ayahuasca like fake ayahuasca that actually was other substances, and even including like antidepressants in it. A little bit, it can get a bit out of control. And there is all the other dimensions, which is the impacts of this in the Amazon. So the economic disparities that are being created with local communities, and the fact that a lot of these shamans that now work for retreat centers owned by foreigners end up being kind of personnel, and sometimes the cooks or the chauffeurs or the hand work, but don't get equal pay, don't get recognition, are treated as a kind of token. You know, you don't know their personal names, you don't know which ethnicity they are from or which culture they are from, and they become this kind of standardized, romanticized indigenous figure. This has a lot of impacts on local communities, including the fact that some shamans charge a lot from foreigners and lose interest in treating local folks. That's a whole other set of problems. Then there is the problem of sexual abuses in ayahuasca circles. And I hope you don't think this presentation is just about all of these negative things, because altogether I still consider that ayahuasca, you know, it's a fascinating and incredibly healing tool. But in any case, talking about these challenges, sexual abuse, the fact that a lot of these groups are really, especially the Brazilian ayahuasca religious, can be really patriarchal and have aspects that are authoritarian and involve strict gender divisions, and women have felt constantly disregarded or dismissed. Also, women shamans have been invisibilized throughout histories. And, you know, with the expansion, there is this general problem of the legitimacy of the mechanisms of control. So a kind of erosion of the traditional mechanisms that control these communities, because as you create itinerant shamans and underground communities, sometimes it's hard to have a control over them. So the last set of preoccupations have to do with what some people call cultural appropriation, or asking, there's a big discussion whether this is a kind of reinvention, recreation, culture is dynamic, culture is always in flux, culture always change, versus, you know, this is just a cultural appropriation, and we are, you know, taking something that is not ours to take. How legitimate or how authentic are these hybrid models? But there's also a lot of flux between forest and city, city and forest, so a lot of hybrid modalities. That's a whole other set of preoccupations. So what has Chacruna been doing to address some of these issues? We created some guidelines to talk about sexual abuse in ayahuasca contexts, and we also created a legal companion explaining to people their rights and their resources, and we hold circles supporting victims and survivors of abuse. That's one of the line of work that we have been doing. We have created a document called The Commodification of Ayahuasca, How Can We Do Better?, where we suggest to people points that they should be looking when they choose retreats. For example, does the participants' well-being take precedence over financial motivations? Another question they could be asking, are local or indigenous people being paid fairly for their services and expertise? Where are the ayahuasca and the ayahuasca-related plants sourced from? Are environmental and community concerns and efforts supported and respected? So we have created a series of publications and guidelines talking about these commodifications and the impact on indigenous people. And the other front that we have been doing a lot of work has to do with the legality of ayahuasca. I want to recommend folks this video that we have on our website, best practices on how to keep ayahuasca practices as legal as possible. So we try to teach underground communities, especially in North America, where we have a stronger presence, but we also have extensions in Brazil, Mexico, and Peru, but our base is in California. So teaching people how to try to best fit the expectations of the DEA, because the Religious Freedom Restoration Act doesn't provide a definition of religion, and courts have been left to develop their own criteria. So we're kind of trying to teach people some of the agreements that the DEA did with the UDV or the Santo Daime, the Brazilian ayahuasca religious, on how to keep your sacrament, on how to keep control of track of your sacrament, how to lock it up, how to report the numbers of people that attend your ceremonies and so forth. And so these are some of the resources that we have been creating. We just hosted a really big conference called Psychedelic Liberty Summit, where we had kind of experts from all areas. It was a two-day conference with 3 simultaneous tracks, and we're discussing exactly these topics of religious freedom, differences between decriminalization, legalization, trying to create a conversation around how to move forward in terms of religious freedom or decriminalization. What are the best strategies? We're trying to help organize a group of groups to set up best standards and best practices. And so these are some of the aspects that the Chakra Institute has been working on. I invite all of you to visit our site and explore our sexual abuse guidelines, explore the activities of the Council for the Protection of Sacred Plant, explore the publications around the commodification and the globalization of ayahuasca. And I want to conclude by telling everybody what's next in our agenda. And so we are a little bit addicted to doing conferences. I like to make this joke. I don't think that psychedelics are addictive, but studying psychedelics is definitely addictive. The more you get involved, the more you feel like studying, the more you feel like researching, the more you feel, that you're just a student on this path and you have more to learn. And so we are moving next. We're creating 2 initiatives. We are going to announce, and so I'm kind of saying this for the first time in public because we have not announced this officially yet. We're going to hold our second conference, Sacred Plants in the Americas 2. We did our first conference, Sacred Plants in the Americas 1, in Ajijic, in the state of, near the city of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. It was an amazing gathering with over 1,000 people. All the indigenous people were our keynote speakers. They had double the time than the PhD professors. Everything was free and everything was in Spanish over the beautiful lake of Chapala, which is a cardinal point in the Wixárika or Wirárika cosmology, one of the five geographical locations for them. And so our vision is to create a space for indigenous people to talk and express what are their needs. We have been also creating this resource guidelines on how to include indigenous people in psychedelic conferences. And so we're going to try to take this to a next level and create the Sacred Plants in the Americas too. Probably online, unfortunately, at this point, next April, but trying to give more visibility to indigenous people, promoting and elevating their voices and making them be part of the committee that organizes and thinks the structural issues. And we're also creating a resource called the Indigenous Reciprocity Initiatives of the Americas, where we are researching about grassroots organizations, indigenous grassroots groups, and what are their needs. So this is an exercise that the Chakra Institute invites all of you to do, to create research projects that are collaborative, to take the idea of interspecies communication seriously, to adopt a decolonial or post-colonial perspective, to promote what we call epistemic justices, to include indigenous people when we talk about indigenous people, to support indigenous and Black academics, to try to diversify your your references in your bibliography, and to quote Black, indigenous, and people of color authors, to create co-authorship with Black, indigenous, and people of color authors, to promote South-South dialogues, to promote, yes,
hey,
forms
Bia.
of knowledge. Yeah.
How are you, Bia?
Yes.
What, you got one more thing to say? I don't want to stop it.
Yeah, I was timing myself, and I had 1 minute here still. Anyway, I'll conclude by saying that I invite you to visit our site, to read anthropology, to get informed, to ask what is there for indigenous people in your initiatives. If you're a startup, if you're a newcomer, if you're arriving to the space, what are you doing to give back to the indigenous people? What are you doing to support the grassroots organizations that build the pillars of this foundation of the psychedelics renaissance? We need your help. We need your support. We're dreaming to find new partners. We're dreaming for new donations. I hope you join us on social media. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and learn about our initiatives, join our conference, sign up for our newsletter, donate for us. Thank you. Big hug to Israel. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for the space.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Bia. Firstly, I want to wish you happy anniversary for your ayahuasca drink. So we'll definitely celebrate that when you come to Tel Aviv. And I also wanted to just comment on, I agree, becoming a student is addictive. I am definitely a student at the beginning stages. You are definitely one of my teachers. Thank you for sharing all of your words. Everybody, go and check out Chakruna's booth at the expo. Donate to them. They're an amazing course, an amazing resource of information, and they do an incredible job. So thank you, Bia.